Good evening, my Bugology class. Today we're going to be going over the Unit 1 slideshow, and I hope that to start off, we're going to talk about bugs. What exactly are they? You might be asking yourself, why are they? Because you've never been in an Bugology class before, but this is all right because you're going to learn everything you need to know here. So, one of the questions we have to start with is, can you classify bugs? Not gonna lie, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's way more complicated than this. But that doesn't mean we can't try. So one of the things about bugs is that they're in a lot of places, and regardless of what you may think, they actually take up a lot of space. And we'll begin to see that as we start going through these slides. So to start off, I want to show you one of the locations where you might come in close encounters with a bug. I want to start off by asking you, where do you think you might find a bug in this image? I'll give you a few seconds to make a guess. If you said the leaf litter, that'd be a correct answer. Bugs tend to be in leaf litter, which is actually really good because they can eat the dead plant material that have fallen off the trees and provide stuff back into the soil for future bugs to persist in the environment. Another answer you might have said is in the leaves, and this too would also be a correct answer because you can find bugs up in the leaves and the upper canopies. You could have also said that you could find them in trees, which would also be true because you can sometimes find bugs in trees. And the final location that you could have possibly said was in the lower down plants on the ground floor. And yes, you can also find bugs there, similarly to here. So I wanted to play a little game with you guys. I want to see if you can spot the caterpillar in this image. I'll give you 5 seconds to find it. Oh, time is up. The bug is actually up here. Now, caterpillars can um, climb trees. They can get up high like this guy did. You might have been astute enough to know that there is also another hidden caterpillar over here. And if you found that one, good job. Send me an email and let me know if you found it. Now, you may be wondering, can bugs be in the water? And I'll let you know on a little secret that bugs can be in water. What kind of bugs, you may ask? Well, there's quite a few, but mostly these guys. These guys are water bugs, and they live in water. So bugs can also live in the sand. Um, so yeah. So I ran into some issues with the slideshow in the recording, so I went back and so this is an edit I made later. It's only on this slide. So my question that you may be asking is how many bugs are there? There's quite a lot actually. There's probably around 10 quintillion bugs. That's a pretty large number. Um, it's really big, so that's like a lot. Um, this prediction came from myself with my vast knowledge of bugs in the field of bugology, so I think I'm adequately qualified to make this sort of a mathematical calculation. And then another thing we have down here is of the 550 gigatons of biomass carbon on Earth, animals make up about 2 gigatons, with insects comprising half of that. This is pretty much just saying that there's 550 gigatons of like carbon matter uh, that's part of living beings, so that'd be plants and animals. And then it says animals make up about 2 gigatons, so a small percentage of this. And the rest would just be plants. Um, so then insects comprise half of the 2 gigatons, which is pretty crazy to think about because so biomass doesn't um, isn't related to one specific creature. It's the actual amount of something. So however many ants it takes to create the mass of one human, however many that may be, let it be like 10,000 ants. It's probably more, but if you have 10,000 ants, it'd be about the same size as a human. And so that'd be an equal amount. So out of all the animals, not including insects, insects make up half of that, which is something crazy to think about. Yeah. So one of the most important things to bugology is understanding how bugs came to be. And one of the main things is the dinosaur fights that they had. This was a pretty big event. And you can see here there's a bug digging into dinosaur scales. Um, and it's really glossed over in bugology within the past decades. Um, you know, there was bugs with like fighting things so they could fight off dinosaurs, and these guys, they're pretty ferocious. So it's good to see that bugs can fight back. So now moving on, we're going to be talking about how how bugs are classified typically. Um, so if you know anything, you'll know that there's an order which, you know, we classify species into. Um, so at the very top, I don't like the way that this graphic is displayed. If it was me making it, I would have put domain at the top. That just makes sense to me and make it go downwards. But essentially, domain is the largest. There's 3 domains. The one we're focused on is Eukarya, as this is where our little bug guys will be. And flowing downwards, you get to Animalia, then Arthropoda, and this is where we're going to focus because this is where the bugs are, and we'll get more into this in a few seconds. And then we go down to Insecta. Now you may be thinking bugs and insects are the same, but they're not, and we'll get into that later into the semester. And then down here at the order, I gave an example of a grasshopper, so Orthoptera, that'd be crickets, not grasshoppers, my bad, my mistake. And then, there's a bunch of different species and genuses of crickets. There's ones that have scales. You have your typical house crickets, so that fall under the genus, and then within those subcategories, you'll fit into the species, like what specific. That's as low as it goes on the organism level. Something to keep in mind is that genus is italicized and species is not, and it's in that order when you're giving the scientific name of a organism. Um, and then, you know, I want to ask you guys if you know what this stuff is called, because if you don't, that's you're gonna have to learn it for the big exam. It's called taxonomic nomenclature, and that's just the naming system that we as bugologists use, along with most biologists, to classify our organisms. And then down here you can see it says cricket lore by Donovan Mann. This is a very famous image, so that might also be on your exam. So, okay, bugs were some of the first creatures to start going to land from the water, as we know with evolution. And alongside plants, they help develop the environment for the land species to come aboard. Um, you know, they started eating the dead plants and stuff and starting a cycle that would continue until today, so that uh, us and dogs and deer and rats, um, like reptiles, basically all land animals, they can live because of these guys. And I gave a little diagram over here to show you like bugs and percentages, so you can look at that if you want to. There's some cool bugs. So all bugs are classified under the phylum Arthropoda, um, or you can call it Arthropoda. I don't know. I'm not a linguist. Under this phylum, they split into several subphylums. So here are the subphylums. You have your insects, which are six-legged, pretty much. You have your arachnids, which would be like your spiders. And then I have an asterisk here next to crustaceans. This is a pretty big deal, but if you don't know what a crustacean is, they're basically just crabs and lobsters, and they would fall under the phylum Arthropoda. And then we have our peds, and those would be your centipedes and millipedes. So you may be asking, does this mean crabs and lobsters are bugs? No, crabs and lobsters are not bugs. Crabs and lobsters are actually studied under the field of crustology. Um, so there's a lot of reasons that crustologians suck, but these are pretty much my top reasons. Typically, when they're doing field work, they're exposed to sea environments, marine, and they start to smell really bad. So, number two, they think crabs and lobsters deserve to be studied. I really don't think this is something worth studying. I think there's a lot more to be done in the field of bugs. And then they care about water only when it affects crustaceans. This is pretty hypocritical because, um, you know, they they're crustologians. They should care about everything, not just lobsters and crabs. And crawdads, I forgot that. Those guys are crustaceans too. Um, there's a few. They're kind of nah, they're not cool. They're not cool. So now we move on to famous bugologists, and this is pretty interesting because this is what I hope all of you will one day become from taking this class, unless you have other interests. But if you're taking this class, you're pretty much hard set on becoming one of these guys. So let's look at this. So up first, we have Dr. Pilcher. He's a very famous moth scientist. He's done a lot in the field, and he's made plenty of discoveries. I think on record, he's discovered 17 different um, species of moths, which is pretty good considering that there's not many moth scientists, bugologists studying moths. He's pretty famous, so yeah. Next up, we have Dr. Amprid. Um, there's actually no photographic evidence of him ever existing, so we made this recreation of what he might have looked like. And this guy studied peds, so your centipedes and millipedes. He didn't really discover much. So that's all of the bugologists that we know of. So we're hoping through this program that we can introduce more bugologists into the workforce, like you guys. That's really what's up here. We need you. The world needs you. Finally, we have your assignment that's due within, we'll post it later, but what I want you to do is pick one bug and I want you to do a little writing. This could be about pretty much anything. It's up to you. So you can either do research, so you can look up a bug and kind of explain what's going on with the bug. Um, you know, you can do some creative writing. You can create a story about a bug. You can create your own work of fiction that can maybe become a classic one day in the field of bugology and English. Or you can give a very detailed description of a bug. It's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure to use APA 7th edition citations. And then for extra credit, you can slander a crustacean of your choice. Um, yeah, that's all I have for you. Make sure to keep up on the readings, and I'll check ya later.